Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nate Crespo, your host for today and forever. And welcome back to another episode of the Lawyers in the Making podcast, where it is my job to focus on the unique journeys to the law and law school of professionals in the legal field and law students. Let's talk about what we're doing today, because today we have another incredible guest. He is a University of Detroit Mercy School of Law graduate and currently works as the owner and CEO of Fireproof Performance and as the president and owner of Mike Morse Law Firm. Finally, he is the author of Fireproof, a five-step model to take your law firm from unpredictable to wildly profitable. Excited to have him on the podcast today, Mr. Michael Morse. Welcome to the podcast. How are we doing today? Before going any further, I'd like to say a quick word about the sponsor of this podcast, Rhetoric. Back in episode 25, I had the privilege of having the CEO, Luke Yingling, on the podcast, and ever since that episode, fell in love with the product. Rhetoric takes user briefs and motions and compares them against the text of opinions written by judges to identify ways to tailor their arguments to better persuade the judges handling their cases. Rhetoric's focus on persuasion and helps users find new ways to improve their odds of success through more persuasive arguments. Know more, win more. I was able to see a demo of the product, and its cutting-edge technology and fascinating features make for a product I am proud to sponsor, and further shows the new digital era the field of law has been entering thus far on my journey doing this podcast. If you decide to book a demo, let them know Nate sent you. Be sure to check them out in the show notes below or at userhetoric.com. One word, userhetoric.com. Now, back to the show.
We are doing great, Nate. Thanks for having me.
I am happy to have you here today, Mike. I'm ready to get into it. So let's go all the way back. The University of Arizona, you graduated there in 1989, and then that following year, you were at the... Actually, wait, hold on. Totally forgot to do this. I'm getting into it too quickly. Mike, before we get started, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? I totally skipped over that part.
I like you. You sound like you were doing it, man. Yeah. So went to U of A back in the day, and then I went right to law school to practice law here in Detroit with my dad, who was a lawyer here for about 20 years, and then I had lots of trials and tribulations, but I finally hung my own shingle in 1995. And today, almost 30 years later, I have one of the largest firms in the country specializing in auto, truck, motorcycle, pedestrian accidents. And that's, 200 employees. We settle about over $200 million worth of cases a year. That's, three daughters, three gorgeous daughters, no longer married. I'm the single guy, but family guy, having fun with my kids and here in Detroit.
Well, I love to hear about the three kids. I always get the late congratulations, but congratulations on that, being a nice girl dad there. I hope to be a father one day myself, maybe a girl dad, maybe a boy dad. Who knows? It's not up to me. It's up to, nature and the universe and whatever they figure out what they want to do. But as I said before, let's go all the way back. Like you said, you graduated from U of A, University of Arizona. I love Arizona, one of my favorite states in the whole country, even though I've only been to very few states. Arizona is just beautiful. Sedona, Arizona specifically, I will be back there. It's heaven on earth. I believe that. All the red rocks, so beautiful. But you then ended up at the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law that following year. So, Mike, simply put, why'd you go to law school?
I really didn't know what else to do. I was not a very good student in high school. I was not a very good student at the University of Arizona. My father was a lawyer. He liked what he did. He loved what he did. I went to his office every Saturday with him growing up. I went and watched him in the courtroom. I watched him interact with clients, with judges, with just everybody he'd meet. And he was just so happy, so kind to everybody. He had these great relationships. And when you see your old man loving what he did, he made a decent living, not rich by any stretch, but he made a nice living. I think as a young man, I'm like, I guess I'm going to law school, because as I look back all those years, I never really had a plan B. And again, he loved it. He had a solo practitioner. He was a solo practitioner, which meant I could step into his firm, no problem. and not have to really go job searching or any of that stuff. Sadly, my first year of law school, he passed away, so I was not able to do that. Before he passed away, he got me a job at another firm, which he believed, and I believe all these years later, it was a very smart move and very good for people listening to do, is get a job at a real law firm, not your family's law firm, not a courthouse, not a judge. Go work in a real live law firm and get, even if it was only 3 months experience, get it in between first year and second year. That's what I did. He got me a job. He died weeks before I started that job, but it was a great job. We can dive into that later, Nate, if you want, but it was a great, great job. It was real life. It made second year and third year easier in law school for lots of reasons. But that, when I taught law school for 3 years at U of D some time ago now, law practice management was my course. And I would tell the students to get a real job while in law school just to test out a type of law. I don't know what the statistics are, but from every lawyer, law student, lawyer I've ever hired, I've hired hundreds and hundreds of lawyers over the last 30 years. Usually the first job is what they end up doing for their entire career. But whether that's for everybody or not, like, go work in a real law firm. Whether, I don't care if it's corporate, divorce, personal injury, criminal, but see what it's like. So that's what I did. And then that job was 3 months. I went back to law school, and my dad's former law clerk hired me to a small firm, and I worked for them throughout law school, which was great experience. I learned how to work up a file. I was doing all kinds of things that lawyers do, but I was only a law student, but they trusted me. I was smart. I was writing. I was talking to clients. I was doing everything a lawyer did as a law student, except for going to court, of course, and taking depositions. And then the day I graduated, well, not the day I graduated law school, the day I passed the bar, I was in depositions. I think I had my first trial within a month, and I hit the ground running. And I worked there for 3 years. And then on September 21st, 1995, they fired me without reason, without a case. They kicked me out the door onto the streets with nothing. And I went and started my own firm. Like, literally, they fired me on a Friday. I started my own firm on a Monday. And I haven't looked back. It was just me for the first many, 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 many years. And then I got a business coach, started hiring people. I now have about 210 employees, and it's been a wild ride. So I really have an interesting story, Nate, and that's why I wrote the book Fireproof, because the first half of my career, I was alone, few employees here and there, hired a business coach, took me to the moon, from, few million settlements to 200 million settlements because of the business acumen that I learned. Because as you kind of know, because you've interviewed so many people, I know you haven't gone to law school yet, maybe, whatever you end up doing, but they don't teach you about business in law school at all. Nothing about marketing, nothing about managing people, nothing about spreadsheets and data and all the important things that I know now. So once I learned all that stuff, it really sunk in, and shit hit the fan, and my firm just blew up to epic proportions, and that's where I'm sitting today.
Well, I'm very excited to get into the whole story, but I hate to do this and go all the way back to the first year of law school because I love talking about those visceral experiences that people
Yeah.
have. Because people love it, people hate it. Some people say it's the best year of their life, some people say it's the worst year of their life. How was it for you, Mike?
I've never really talked about that. So, coming from mediocre grades in high school, I was lucky if I got B's in college. It was not my focus, to be quite honest, the schoolwork. I got into, I did decent on my LSAT, and I got into a decent university. I didn't, okay, here's the truth. I thought I was the dumbest kid in school. So I remember my first day of law school. You're supposed to read two, three cases. I read them, didn't understand much, but I read them two, three times. I got there, teacher asked a question, all these hands start shooting up. We called them the gunners, right? The gunners are raising their hands and they're saying things. And I'm flipping through the pages in my book thinking, did I read the wrong case? And I thought, I'm going to fail out because they always make a speech, not all of you are going to graduate, right? Look to your left, look to your right. I don't remember what percent they said weren't going to be there in 3 years, but they scare you a little bit. And I was scared. And I remember feeling fear that I made a mistake. This wasn't for me. How am I going to get through this? I'm not smart enough. That kind of went on for the whole first semester. And I studied really, really hard. I blocked out everything else. I stayed late. I went to talk to teachers. I hated getting called on. I didn't feel smart getting called on, but I did talk. But I was also the class clown in law school. Like I would use jokes and humor to deflect what I thought was not great answers. Maybe they were good answers, maybe they weren't, but that was my default mode. December 1989, we go in for our midterm exams. There's 5 of them. Studied my butt off. You couldn't cheat. You couldn't look at other people's papers. It's mano a mano with that test. You couldn't get help, right? College, once in a while, you could get a little help if you needed it. And I got all A's. I was top of my class. And I looked around like, what? Like I was shocked, Nate. I can't tell you how shocked I was. And it was the first time in my life ever feeling really smart and capable. 20, how old was I? 22, 21. So that was the first semester. Second semester, I studied just as hard because I thought, well, maybe that was a fluke. Maybe I'm not that smart. They added on a 6th course, I think, another criminal law course or something. Had some kooky teachers. This one teacher was just kind of batty. I'm not going to say the name now that I said that. But anyway, so then I get to finals and I took 3 finals and then my dad died and I had 2 more finals to take and they didn't move my finals. I still had to take them. Again, miraculously, top of my class. I think I was in the top 10, maybe top 5. And there's smart people, older people than me, worldly people, and I just killed those exams. So second, third year obviously was different. I went in with new confidence, a little bit of swagger, knowing that I could do this. I was capable. I'm not going to fail out. And I actually talked about and I don't know if I've ever told this story, but I actually talked about transferring to a little bit better of a university, a public university. And I applied there and they accepted me. And I went to my school and I said, this school is offering me a scholarship and telling me to come over. So my school actually matched the scholarship to keep me. So saved a little bit of money and graduated from University of Detroit, Mercy School of Law. Very happy. I think it's a very good school and happy to have my degree. So that was my first year story. Lots of, I could dive in more if you have any other questions.
I mean, the one question I really have is sort of what was that visceral feeling like when you finally overcame that self-doubt, seeing all those A's, seeing that you're top of the class, and what was the mindset switch like? Like, how did your thinking change after seeing all those A's, seeing that, okay, I'm capable, I could actually do this?
It was surreal. I was in disbelief, really. It was just shock. Maybe a little bit of self-reflection, like, oh, if I really applied myself the last 7 years, what could have happened? 8 years, but I truly didn't have any regrets. I didn't. I hated high school. I hated school. I crossed off the days on my calendar to get out. I was bullied as a kid. It was a miserable, miserable experience. My parents were going through multiple divorces. They picked horrible step parents for me, horrible people, except for one. My mom's current husband was her third husband, and he's amazing. I love him. but all the rest of them were just pieces of garbage. And I so I didn't have any real reason, any really good thoughts about school. But this, I think, I mean, and the other thing is like, I didn't think I could do great. I mean, the classes I took in college, some of them were boring, like the accountings and atmospheric science and biology. And I'm like, this stuff is so boring to me. I'm never going to use it. I'm never going to do any of these things. So I got by any means possible. Fill in the blank what that means to you. But I got by and I never, so I didn't apply myself much. Law is the only thing I really kind of wanted to do, really kind of cared about. I put my brain power to it. I gave it the attention it needed. We didn't have cell phones back then. We didn't have distractions back then. We didn't even have laptops back then. And I just studied. And I had to read it over and over and over to hammer the memorization into my brain. And I didn't understand concepts. So I'd make friends and we'd sit in restaurants or cafeterias and just explained it out loud. What does this case mean? What do these concepts mean? What does this theory mean? What is the arguments on both sides of this? And I just got it, and I loved it, and I liked. It was a good feeling. It was a good feeling knowing that I was capable. I was young. I'm still young. I was 21. I was 22 years old. And it was a good feeling at that young of an age to say, okay, I'm not as dumb as I thought. I can focus when I need to focus, and I can do big things if I put my mind to it.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that moment where I can tell myself I'm not as dumb as I thought. I still think I'm pretty stupid, but it's all right. And I love what you said before there, talking about it out loud, talking to others about it. It's very helpful because I do that a ton of times. I never shut up, of course. I mean, that's why I started the podcast in the first place. But I'm always explaining things to people, as silly or as outrageous they may be, because it helps me reflect on those things. It reminds me of Professor Richard Feynman, who I love very much, but he always, explained it to a 5-year-old, being able to take these complex things and simplify them. So I thought that was great, a really great point. But let's talk about getting that real world law firm experience and how it made it easier. So can you talk about your summer job? And specifically, I want to talk about something that I love talking about on this podcast, finding out what you want to do in the law, finding out the specific
Yeah,
specialization, but also finding out what you don't want to do, especially
yeah,
because you don't want to be
yeah.
stuck with something that you don't want to do.
I think you got to test out a lot of things. I've actually talked to law schools about you should put your kids through 6 weeks, 8 weeks of a divorce class, criminal, personal injury, corporate, government job, prosecutor, because you do need to try these things on. So, and I don't have a bias towards anything. I mean, my dad was a personal injury lawyer. That's what I do. I knew I didn't want to be divorced in family law because I went through all those divorces and I just saw the ugliness of that. I still happy. I've never handled one, never want to handle one. Couldn't do a corporate job because I knew that was going to be long hours, lots of writing, sitting in a basement, not glamorous, not dealing with clients, dealing with corporations and insurance companies and bullshit I didn't want to deal with. So you got to just, in a law school, they don't go through this and explain what are you actually going to do as a bankruptcy lawyer? What are you going to do as a corporate lawyer? What are you going to do? And I tried to do that in my course. I would answer questions to kids who would think, oh, I want to be a this and that. And how much money am I going to make? And how many hours am I going to work? And how hard is the job? I mean, that's all find outable right now. And my suggestion would be, if you think you want to be a family law lawyer, then go clerk there, even if you have to do it for free or a very low wage. Um, um, get your foot in the door and volunteer your time or get paid for it or whatever, but test it out in law school. There's nothing worse than seeing jumpy resumes as a hiring lawyer. When tried this and he tried this and he tried this and he tried this, and then they get to me, fourth or fifth job. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to keep this guy happy. That's just a fact, right? If somebody's got a jumpy resume, my father-in-law, who was my first mentor, Steve Radom, said, you're not going to be the difference maker, no matter what. If you see a jumpy resume, it's for a reason. You're not automatically going to calm this person down to stay with you for 20 years. And as a hiring manager, let's just say, you're looking for somebody who's going to stay. You're not looking for somebody who's going to leave in a year or two because it's very costly to train somebody. So you look at resumes very closely. So I don't know if kids these days are thinking about that. Oh, I have five jobs in 10 years. Yay. Look at all this experience. I won't even interview that person. So I would be very careful and get as much experience as you can in law school, because who cares what you do in law school? I don't care if you have 10 clerkships in law school. But I remember, I'll give you a little anecdotal story. You told me to go off on tangents. One of the top prosecutors in my town, who just tried one of the biggest cases in Michigan's history. They held the parents of a mass shooter responsible for the mass shooting, basically. And they're facing 10 years, 15 years in prison. It's the first case in the history of Michigan, in the history of the country, Nate. Usually the shooter goes to prison, right? But they held the parents responsible. A kid who worked for me, Mark Keast, tried that case, the lead prosecutor in that case. But he worked for me for the first year after law school. And he reminded me of this story recently. I interviewed him personally. And I said, Mark, your interview screams prosecutor job. Why are you applying at a personal injury law firm? And he says, well, they're not hiring. I need a job. And I thought he was a great guy, great big guy, big muscles, great fun, great smile, good presence. And I hired him. And he only worked there a year and a half, but he was a great lawyer, good friend, left me to go to the prosecutor's office. He's been there now 20 plus years, and he's one of the top. He's not the named prosecutor, but I think he's like the first person right below her. And he did a great job on those cases, and he's a great guy, great lawyer. But I do look at law school, what they did in law school, where they clerked and all that, and it does have a correlation. He truly did have a heart of a prosecutor. And today, I wouldn't probably hire somebody who had 20 years as a prosecutor and then they want to do personal injury. It's hard to shift. I've tried several times. I do have an ex-prosecutor working for me now, and she's doing good, but for the most part, it's not easy to flip-flop. So long answer to try as many things as you can, even if it's for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. If it's a good enough job and they'll train you, you can get a sense for being a divorce lawyer or corporate lawyer or appellate lawyer or whatever lawyer. And I think that's just super important before you just take that first job, desperate to take that job, and then you get there and you hate it, and then you quit, and then your resume looks like poop. Avoid that if you can.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more than that. That is a constant principle of this podcast, is you just go out and actually do it, see how the work is. Because a lot of people, they might want to be a litigator, they might want to do transactional work, and then they actually get there and do it, and like, this sucks. I never want to do this for the rest of my life. So it's very important for people to get those experiences. Now, you said something before, you talked about a mentor of yours, and I want to talk about mentorship. How important has it been for you? And what advice or suggestions would you have for people to find those mentors, or sort of get their way to a mentor, find that mentorship?
Yeah, it's huge. Huge. I mean, I would not be where I'm at today without my mentor, Steve, and without my business coach, Gino. Wouldn't be where I'm at. I give them a lot of credit, like most of it. And how to find it. So Steve was my father-in-law, and he was just really, really smart. And he took an interest in my business and asked lots of good questions and got me on my way. Sadly, he developed brain cancer, and I had to hire somebody to take his place because he was physically not able to help me anymore. But for the first several years, he was amazing me far. How to get them, I I'm sure if you ask ChatGPT that question, he or she will come up with 20 great ideas. But here's my best idea. And I've said this before. I believe that law students and even college students and even young lawyers are shy, and they need to be extroverted, and they need to go out and ask someone to be their mentor. I've had only a handful of law students and young lawyers ask me for advice, and I've said yes to all of them. And I've sat down with all of them, and I've helped all of them. I don't know why that is. One of the best sources of cases is the guys who advertise on TV. They have to refer out hundreds of cases a week, and nobody's asking those lawyers for cases because they're afraid or they're intimidated or they don't think they'll take the call or whatever. Well, I'm one of those guys, and I get very, very, very few emails or calls asking for divorce work that I don't do, or asking for criminal work that I don't do, or asking for corporate work that I don't do, or asking for bankruptcy work that I don't do, etc. And when I get on stages nationally and I'm talking to lawyers, I'm like, if you're struggling for cases, call those people. And if they don't call you back, call them again. If they don't call you back, send them a pizza. If they don't call you back, send them a pizza again. If they don't call you back, send them a pizza every day until they call you back. And I promise you, if they're worth anything, any type of decent human being, they're going to call you back. Do something to get their attention. Find out what they love to do. Find out where they go. Find out where they eat. Find out where they shop. Find out what they love. If they love shoes, get them a pair of Nike Dunks. If they love bourbon, get them a nice bottle of bourbon. Get their attention. We're all seeking attention. The hardest part of being a lawyer is getting cases, right? You're seeking attention, how to get the cases. You got to get them from the public or lawyers or whoever. You need attention. And I think one way to get a mentor is to, you have to get the attention of somebody, and whether it be just a flattering email or a nice email, like, why for you, right? If you want me to mentor you, you better write me a nice email telling me why, and be humble and be real. And, I've had people write me and say, Michael, I live in, it was another country. I don't know if this one was Canada, but I live in Canada. I read your book, Fireproof. It changed my life. I've taken these steps to improve my practice. Is there any way I could buy 15 minutes of your time to get on a call with me? I know you're terribly busy, blah, blah, blah. Of course, I got on the phone with this guy for an hour. Time. It was flattering. It was truthful. He says, "What can I do for you? How can I pay you back?" And I said, "You could review the book Fireproof on Amazon." That was my payment. That was my payment. And he loved it. And he says, "Can I call you in a year?" I said, "Absolutely." Anyway, you just gotta, I find that people are too timid. And I don't know if it's your generation that are on their phone so much that they lose the personal connection. I mean, you don't, obviously, you're a weird breed, but the most kids are on their phones, and they're not taught how to interact these days and go up to people. And I train my daughters, when you go to a new kid's house, you go in there and you shake their hand, you say, "Hi, I'm Ella Morse. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me." And most kids don't do that. I see my kid, their friends come by and they just walk past me and don't say hi, don't say thanks, I'm like, and I think it translates to asking for help, asking for advice, asking for mentorship. You just got to ask, but ask the right person. Make sure that this is the person you want to be your mentor.
Yeah, I obviously I have to agree on all counts there. I think it's just so important. Got to put yourself out there. I mean, I for one, I'm not afraid to send a message. I'll send a message to everyone on this planet. And I think what you said before is really important in terms of finding what people enjoy, finding what people like, maybe a hobby that they have, that you can sort of draw them out like that. I know one of my favorite books ever, The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. He has a whole section about how he used to go to colleges and have all these talks, and he would talk about the certain people that, find one of the most famous people in the world. I know he told the story about this one kid at the college he was talking at, and it was like the COO of Google. And so he was very interested. I think it was like ancient Chinese Buddhism or something. And so he just sent him an email one time, got his email, sent him an email, typed up this whole thing about ancient Chinese Buddhism, how I'm into it, and they had a relationship after that for years and years and years, just because it started at something that they both had interest in and both had a deep hobby in. So I think that's such an amazing sentiment to say. It's so, so important. You gotta just get out there. You gotta talk. One of my favorite jobs ever, I always talk about my position at ShopRite working as produce, was just so beneficial for me because I learned how to talk to people. I learned how to interact with people. How are you doing? How's your day? What do you need? Where are the avocados? I know where the avocados is. Something like that. It just really, really helped me, get those soft skills and grow, sort of be able to talk to people, have that personal conversation, not be on your phone the whole time, even though I am on my phone a little too much sometimes, but it's all right. So let's talk
Did
about,
you? I have a question. Did you call it Buddhism?
is it not called Buddhism?
Buddhism.
Buddhism. Look at that. And I'm a
Bu-
philosophy major.
Buddhism. Booty. It's like a booty callism. I mean, it's Buddhism. It's an ancient 20. It's a book on it right now. Dan
Buddhism.
Harris. Dan Harris, 10% happier. Oh, actually, look at this. I know that your audience can't see the book, but it's a great book on being on meditation and happier. And he talks a lot about Buddhism. Tangent alert. All right, go ahead. What's your next question?
So let's talk about the Mike Morse Law Firm. You're the president and the owner since 1995. And as you said, you got laid off on Friday. You started on Monday. So
It was a
I always
brutal firing. It was not a layoff.
that was a brutal. So can you talk about that experience? Talk about the trials and tribulations starting a law firm. I know a lot comes out with that. I've talked to people in the past. It opens up somewhat of a Pandora's box of all the struggles that they went through. So can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, I have two things I want to say. Number one, for the people listening, you may get fired from a job and don't let it get you down. So I just I'm writing a LinkedIn post right now. If any of your followers want to follow me at I think it's Mike, just at Michael Morse. But we have 855 Mike Wins, and we have a lot of social media fun stuff that we talk about. But I met you through LinkedIn, and you're posting some great shit, and I'm putting out some new vulnerable stuff. And one of them is about getting fired from different angles. And I just wrote one, I haven't published it yet, that basically says, I wish I had quit before I got fired, but I did have the cojones to do that. But either way, if you do get fired or you do quit, I mean, my life has changed so much for the better by getting fired. Okay. And it's just, I can't even describe it fully right now to you, but opening up your own firm without any experience, without any know-how, without any business sense, without any true mentors at the time, you're just scrappy. You're just going by gut instinct and grit and whatever you can muster. And and whoever you are, whatever's in your makeup is going to be as good as your law firm, I guess. I mean, how much, how hard are you going to run? Are you going to work 15-hour days? Or are you going to go in and out for 2-3 hours and make a few bucks and hope to get a case here and there? I don't know why truly, but I am a, full throttle ahead guy. And within weeks, I had dozens and dozens of personal injury cases referred to me. I called in every single person I knew. One of my best friends from law school, Jason, said, I'm going to take you under my wing. I'm doing collection work, but I get personal injury cases from these other sources. Why don't we work on them together? Let's split the fees. I know you don't have any money. I'll lay out the costs. Teach me how to do personal injury work, Michael. You've been doing it for 3 years, 5 years with clerkship. What a trade-off. What a mensch this guy is. That's a Yiddish term for a great guy. So Jason gave me cases. I worked them up. I taught him how to work them up. He's now 30 years later. He's now one of the best trial lawyers in Michigan. Just got a $30 million verdict in Grand Rapids. Jason Wechter is his name. He specializes in motorcycle accidents and car accidents and all this stuff. Great guy. And I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for him. So, all people are listening to this podcast in law school. You don't know who's sitting to your right and left who's going to save you one day. Okay. Jason saved me. And my first call, because he was referring me personal injury cases to my old firm. I got fired. I called him. I'm like, Jason, you're not going to believe this. He's like, dude, don't worry about it. Come meet me in my office Monday morning. He got me an office. I negotiated a desk and a chair and a shared receptionist. He got me cases. I taught him how to work them up. He paid for them. We split the fees. It was a win-win. And we ended up buying a building together one day, and we kept growing together. And then, we eventually split up, but we're still great, great friends. We had breakfast last week, and he got this $30 million verdict, which is, it's very rare. And he's a student of this stuff. So, he would, I don't know if he was a true mentor, but he was just a good friend that I could call on. So he had already set up his office. Let me start there. And he taught me, okay, you need an IOLTA account. I'm like, what? An IOLTA account, an interest on lawyer trust account. Okay, where do I go get that? He said, well, there's a bank in the building. I'm like, okay. So I went downstairs and I opened up 2 accounts. And then he said, okay, you need phones, you need business cards, you need whatever you need, right? You need insurance. Here's my insurance guy. I think you got to look for friends who can help you set up, right? You got to, that's not the hardest part, but I luckily had a friend who said, this is how you do it. Get a phone number. Well, phone numbers are important. If I said to somebody this, one thing that I talk about with students these days, brand early. I wish I set up my brand earlier than I did. I'm the Mike Morse Law Firm, 855 Mike wins, go for the win. That's recent. That's 10, 12 years old. I wish I would have done that in law school. But you guys don't have any idea what you're going to do one day. But a good phone number, maybe a vanity number. I got a guy. If anybody needs a good phone number, call me, Paul. I'll get you his number. If you could do that in law school or getting out of law school, who knows what you're going to do one day? Good website, good email. I mean, get a great Gmail if you can. It's start early, but all these little things. But I had no idea how to market. So what did I do? I called every lawyer in town. I knocked on doors. I said, I have time. I want to take your crappy cases. I want to turn them into great cases. I want to try your cases for you, and we'll split the fee. And I had lots of offers, and I did great success. And they helped. So I was learning how to practice law more and more and more, and how to work up cases and deal with clients and take great depositions and try good cases on other people's cases. It was phenomenal. And it worked. And I won most of my cases, and I settled most of my cases, and I got more money than they would have got. I remember several times I'd get this referral fee, and I'd run it over to their office, and I'd give them a big check, and they're like, how the heck did you get this much money on that little piece of crap case? I'm like, it's all I had to do. I have only time. I don't have a big, massive firm yet. I have only time to work on your cases. So I got more cases, and I got more cases. And when the clients were happy, I asked them, please, here's 10 cards. Please give them out to 10 friends. And they did. I was hungry. If I didn't get cases and I didn't win cases or settle cases, I was not eating. I had no choice. My dad was gone. I had no safety net. I did not have a choice. So I figured it out on my own. And then I had to hire somebody or part-time person to help me. And then I'd hire somebody else, usually part-time, maybe not that great. And then my father-in-law started saying, we got to hire better people. We got to get, there's a whole process there. And he helped me hire my first great secretary, Lori, who was with me for over 10 years, who helped turn my whole practice around. And it just kind of steamrolls. And you just got to be looking for those mentors, looking for those people, not be afraid. I don't know a person in my life who's not humble enough that if somebody asks, will you help me? That they won't stop and help, right? Will you help me? I'm struggling with this, Nate. Will you please help me with this problem I'm having? I want to start a podcast, Nate. Would you help me? Give me 20 minutes and tell me what I need to do. And you know what? Knowing you just in the little bit of time I do, we've had 2 calls now. You'd say, no problem, Mike. Let's hop on a call. I'll tell you everything I know. Right? But people don't ask you probably. And one day they will, and hopefully you'll remember this, and you'll slow down and say, yeah, I'm going to help. I'm going to help. And I help everybody I can. I never say no. It just in my nature. My dad was a helper. In my heart, that's my nature. I love it. I love helping. I love teaching. And so you got to get good though at asking for help. And a lot of people, I don't know what the stigma is against it, but I would implore your listeners to not be afraid to ask for help, to ask for advice, to ask for cases, to ask for space in a building, to say, you know, I can't afford an office, but can you give me an office, Mike, and I'll work for you 20 hours a month for free? I mean, something. I just made that up, obviously, but be creative in your ask, be creative in what you offer back. Um, there's so many things. I mean, you just got to be creative and curious.
Yeah, once again, I have to agree. And I think it's so important and brilliant that people are willing to help. Actually, most, if not all people, especially on LinkedIn, everyone there is pretty much posting content to help other people. So you just got to make that call. You just got to make that text. You got to send that email, whatever it may be, because people are willing to help. They're willing to give back for all they've done in their career. They're giving back to the next generation, the younger generation. And of course, if anyone needs podcast help, I can help you. But you talked about how life-changing getting a business coach was, and that's a main theme of your book, Fireproof: A Five-Step Model to Take Your Law Firm from Unpredictable to Wildly Profitable. Now I have some notes about it, and you harp on the idea of business development, how important that is, how they don't talk about it in law school. But can you give a short little overview about the book? What is it about? What are some main takeaways that you would want people to take away?
Well, I think you nailed it about, you know, having a coach. I hope I convince people to go out there and find a great coach. We have a fireproof coaching system, not for young law students or baby lawyers, but for existing firms. But I have personal coaches. I have, you know, a coach who can give you some advice along whatever path you're on, whether it be personal. Heck, Nate, I got a sleep coach right now because my sleeping is jacked up. I mean, whatever kind of coach that will help you get to where you're at a little bit faster, a little bit better, help you avoid some of the mistakes. That's why I wrote the book, to help people avoid some of the mistakes, get them start thinking about data in law school, capturing every name, every number, every case early, every email early, every cell phone early, coming up with a brand. What makes you different? What makes you that Cherry Garcia flavor over vanilla? How to hire and fire and reward people and recognize people better. How to, I mean, just all kinds of business things, how to set up core values at your law firm, how to set up your core processes and your niche, and, you know, treating your law firm like a true business, hiring, you know, learning how to delegate is one of the best things I've ever done. And I spend lots of time on that in my coaching program, because when to know to let go of that assignment or that task, and how to identify which one you should let go of and which one you should keep, right? There's so much with delegation. If young lawyers are watching this, or solo practitioners, or even established lawyers, you know, I promise you, a lot of them are really busy running around like chickens with their heads cut off, not knowing what to delegate or how to delegate. And they must learn that skill if they want to be truly successful and work in their sweet spot. And when I say sweet spot, I mean working in the spot that you love what you're doing and you're freaking great at it. That's where I work every day. That's my spot. My sweet spot is I love what I do and I'm great at it. I do nothing that I'm not good at, and I do nothing that I don't like to do. It's a dream for a lot of people, but I'm telling you, it's possible. It took me 30 plus years to get there. But I say that a lot to my coaching clients, is that that's where we're going. Right now, you're doing a lot of shit you're miserable doing. I did that for 20 years. But eventually, if you understand how to delegate and you have success, you can delegate away all the stuff you don't like to do and only work on the stuff you love to do and that you're great at.
So you talked about having the best people. So my question for that is sort of, what in your view is the ideal employee for you in terms of getting the right people? Because I think it's great for people to hear what you would sort of be looking for in an ideal hiree or new employee.
That's easy. I have 6 core values of my law firm. You know them, they're in my book. And I'll go through a few of them, right? Somebody who's dedicated to winning. So we ask interview questions about winning. Someone who produces great work, right? Somebody who's hardworking. Somebody who's loyal to the firm, who can be loyal to the firm, loyal to me. And those types of things are, we make sure that they pass our core values. We don't hire anybody who don't meet our core values. And that's who I'm looking for. Of course, you could say a lot of other things, I don't even know what other things I'd say, but you have to know who you're trying to hire, right? You have to have a target. And we have tests that we give people, actually, Nate. We're one of the only firms that I know of that tests every employee before they walk in the door. And we know a little bit about them before they start. And it's a personality test, some IQ testing, to see if they're a fit. And I've been doing that since I opened my shop. My father-in-law told me that. He had me test myself, my wife at the time, and tested. We couldn't believe how great these tests were, these personality tests, like an MMPI and those types of things. And they really tell who you are and can tell on you. And if somebody applies for a job and says, I'm not taking your stupid test, I don't even interview. It's that black and white at my firm. And it's worked. And I make hiring mistakes, don't get me wrong, but I make very few hiring mistakes. And most of my people have been with me for 10 years plus. They don't leave. I have very low turnover. So that goes into how to treat people, how to reward people, how to recognize people, how to have a nice, shop.
So unfortunately, you beat me to the Cherry Garcia because I was going to talk about the Cherry Garcia, that it always does beat vanilla. So what does that mean? What is Cherry Garcia beating vanilla every time?
Well, hopefully everybody listening understands that vanilla flavor is a commodity. It's delicious. I love my vanilla ice cream,
Of
but it
course.
doesn't really stand out. It's not memorable. Cherry Garcia, on the other hand, with those chocolate chunks and the cherries and the cherry ice cream, memorable. You know exactly what you're getting with Cherry Garcia. It's delicious. It's different, right? It stands out. It stands out in a crowded field of vanilla. Like I said earlier, every lawyer out there is trying to get attention for something. Cases, success, whatever they're trying to achieve. And in order to get more of whatever you want, you need to get people's attention and you need to stand out. And legal ads in this country suck so bad. And when I went on TV 13 years ago, I said, I can't do that. I can't waste millions of dollars on crappy ads. So I found my inner Cherry Garcia, which was a little bit of humor, some self-deprecating stuff. I brought my mom into the ads. I bring my dog into the ads. I'm funny in the ads. I'm making fun of myself in the ads. I got an ad where I'm chasing an ambulance, only to turn out that I'm trying to return the guy's wallet at the end, which is a really one of my famous commercials, which people could see on my YouTube channel, Mike Morse Law Firm. All my commercials are there. And so we're different. If you watch 2 or 3 of my commercials, you're going to see different. I've been on the local Super Bowl last 10, 11, 12 years here in Detroit, which are high production value commercials. We do a new one every year. The public looks forward to them. They're fun. They're funny. They're different. And I stand out. And when I walk around the streets of Detroit, go to a restaurant, I have 10 people say to me, great commercials, Mike. Where's your mom? And thanks for what you do in our community. And that's what I get constantly. And it's the best feeling. And I've been around people who have crappy commercials, and I promise you, nobody walks up to them and say, hey, nice commercials. Nobody. Nobody. They point and say, oh, that's that guy from TV. They don't say nice commercials. I want them saying nice commercials. So I love your commercials.
I love the Super Bowl ads. I might go to Michigan just to watch the Super Bowl next year so I could see a Michael Morse Law Firm
Fine, do it.
commercial.
Or
I
I'll
need
send
to
it to
do
you.
it.
I'll send it to you the next day.
Please do. And for anyone wondering about these books and these YouTube channels, they will all be in the description below, in the show notes below, so you could all get it there. But something that caught my eye when I was looking through your book and reading your book is that he who represents himself as a fool for a client, a very famous quote from Abraham Lincoln that I've never heard before. But can you talk about that quote? What is the
Yeah.
significance of it?
So we use it in our coaching program. People don't spend the time on their businesses. Okay. And I don't know if this is going exactly, the quote is pretty self-explanatory because that's about representing yourself. But we believe that if you're a lawyer, here's how I get people in this mindset, Nate. Pretend like you're a lawyer. And if you're a lawyer out there, you think about your biggest case that you've ever worked on or that you're working on right now. And you're spending every day, every night, hours thinking about it, writing, researching it, getting it ready for that big trial, that big settlement, that big whatever. Tons of time, tons of energy. Well, why aren't you spending that much time on your business, on your baby, on your lifeline? That case isn't going to be around forever, but your business is going to be around for 40 or 50 years. People spend so much time on their cases and they don't spend time building up their business, working on their business. So that's what that means. That's what that chapter is about. Work on your firm like you do your biggest case. And it gets people into that mindset of that. When I first came up with that, or my partner, John Knockhazel, came up with that, it was like, that just puts it right out there because every lawyer knows how much time they put into a case, a big case, the biggest case they've ever had. Why aren't they putting 1/10 of that time into their practice every week, meeting with the people, having a great, robust meeting with your leaders, doing all the things you're supposed to do to run a good business? Lawyers call me all the time. Michael, I want to join your fireproof program. And I say, all right, well, tell me about your firm. And I have 4 or 5 questions that I ask that I know are going to be bad answers. Or I know the answer. If they answer it one way, I know that they need our help. And one of them is, tell me about your leadership team. What's a leadership team? Problem. Tell me about the data that you look at every day. I don't. Well, okay, how many cases did you sign up last week? I don't know. What's your average case size, dollar-wise? I don't know. Well, what cases do you make the most money on? I don't know. Well, how much time does it take for you to sign up a case to you disperse on a case? I don't know. And I go through this rigmarole. What are your core values? You know that they aren't set up as a proper business, and then I can help them get to that next level. And I've done that now with hundreds of firms, and they double in size and triple in size and bring in more revenue and happier employees, and they're happier. And I teach them how to delegate and all these things. It's just so fun to help people and watch them grow and thrive in this pretty stressful job that we all have as lawyers.
Speaking of the data, as your book is seemingly it's very data driven because there is no scoreboard. It's very hard to keep track of if you're being successful or not. And the only way to keep track is tracking the data. So what sort of things, I know you mentioned a couple data points before, what sort of things should the lawyers look out for in terms of data, ensuring that their business is moving in the right direction, that they're moving towards being successful?
Right. So in the book Fireproof, we offer a lot of examples like that, and we have a couple of free resources. Every type of practice is different what they should be tracking. I'm a personal injury lawyer, so I could, tell you about cases and case size and signups and length of time and average time on desk. And, there's a ton of data points. And again, no matter what type of firm you have to know every bit of data so you can make good decisions. Before I had we call it a Jumbotron, I was just running a blank scoreboard. I couldn't make a decision, Hey, my secretary would say, yeah, we need a new printer. I'm like, well, do we have enough money in the account to buy a printer? Right? I should know these things. I should know my average case size, right? If I know my average case size and I know my average fee, I know how many cases I need to know to make how much money at the end of the year. I pre-plan. I know in January what I'm going to make in December because I know how many cases are going through the system. I know how long it takes to get those cases through the system. I know the average fees. I know lots of things. So my advice is to know everything you could know. And then if it's not helpful and you're not making decisions based on that data, let it fall off. But we add data points all the time. There's no cookie cutter standard Jumbotron unless you're a personal injury lawyer. And then at Fireproof, we do have a cookie cutter Jumbotron that we prepare for our coaching clients. And we give away free ones to baby lawyers or anybody who wants it. I don't know the website exactly, but where those are, but it's in Fireproof book. And they can download forms and come to our website, fireproofperformance.com, and get some of those things and help them at least get started on the journey of having their own individualized Jumbotron.
Law students, are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or short on time in law school? Maybe you just want someone to show you a step-by-step framework to master the topics you're learning in your classes. I know the pressure you're under, and I've got the perfect solution for you. My course, the Law School Operating System, is proven to help you conquer law school with confidence and ease.
Created by Lisa Blasser, a former guest on the podcast and founder of the Law School Success Institute, this course breaks down every subject into manageable main topics that you run through a comprehensive study system to thoroughly prepare you for class and final exams. No more feeling like you need to know everything all at once in the beginning.
But that's not all, Nate. The Law School Operating System also teaches you how to schedule your studying and time effectively. For every topic, you'll know which study step you're on and when you'll complete it every week of your semester. No more mad dash cram sessions, more time with your loved ones. And with my system, you'll walk into your exams knowing you've given 100% of yourself, that there's nothing more you could have done to succeed, and there's no better confidence than that.
Lisa breaks it down like this: one class, one list of main topics, and one system to master each topic. With recorded and live sessions for students available on her website and partnerships with law schools nationwide, the Law School Operating System is here to help you thrive from day one to the final exam. Ready to take control of your law school journey and operate at your full potential in law school? Visit www.lisablasser.com today and enroll in the Law School Operating System. Be sure to use code LSOSNATE10 at checkout for 10% off the recorded course. That is code LSOSNATE10 at checkout. Now, back to the show. And just as there is no cookie cutter data points, there also is no straight path to the law or law school. There's only your unique path. I just had to say that. But I think as well, not to get too philosophical, one of my favorite books ever, The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, he talks about how you got to look into the past, get those data points, even though this is so long ago, but get the things in the past, learn from history so you can use it in the present and the future. And he always talks about in times of peace, many people will sit there, they'll feel comfortable. And just like you may be in a law firm, things are going well, things are going successful, but you're not making sure that when that roadblock comes up, that obstacle comes, you have all the adequate data, just as a prince may have all the adequate armies to make sure that they can defend their frontier, whatever it may be. See, I always try to not get philosophical, but then it happens and I don't know what happens anymore. But I just thought that's what came into my head when you were talking about that. But Michael,
Right.
we're down to our last 5 questions here. The first is something I've recognized throughout my entire journey doing this podcast, is that the law is moving in a certain direction, just as yourself, a lot more data driven, using a lot more data, using software technologies. People are using new AI tools, using new software products. So this is more of a tech stack question per se, but what does your tech stack look like? And if you don't know what that is, it's just all the technology you use. And what sort of suggestions would you have for people and law firms out there who are looking for new technologies that they want to use?
Wow. We are a tech, one of my yearly goals is always to be a tech-driven company. So I have a full-time, high-level CIO, Chief Information Officer, and he's in charge of all my tech. And we could spend 5 hours on this. But he came in a couple of years ago and revamped my whole system. He got me off basic platforms, and now we only use Zoom for our phones. He got us all on these fancy laptops. We are on these Microsoft Surface Pros, and I bought one for every single member of my law firm. And so he makes sure that we have the right technology and we have the right everything. And it's, I know law firms that are getting hacked left and right. And what's happening is, number one, they have real servers in their offices that are getting hacked. They're not on the cloud. Number two, most law firms have some kind of hybrid situation. So when they go home, they're using home computers or other devices that are shared, and people are getting hacked and ransomware in a lot of law firms. So you got to make sure that your security is tight. As far as individualized, tech, we all use tech. You got to research what's good for you. You got to find yourself a good CIO, or at least read, figure out AI, figure it out. I mean, that's the fun of it, right? That's the fun of what we do. I don't have any great websites to go check out, but I read tech. I read AI. I read 2 AI blogs every morning looking for new cool shit to play with. And lawyers, I'll just throw out there, suck at tech. So stay on top of it. Lawyers are dinosaurs. If you're going into an existing firm, it's going to be antiquated. You're going to see reams of paper everywhere. We were the first firm, one of the first firms in the country to go paperless. This is 2005 and 6. And since then, I used to lecture around the country teaching people about scanning and what they need to do and protocols. Because back in the day, it was all paper all the time. And people are getting better at it. But I still have 5 copy machines in my office. And the judges, they want to hold those briefs. And I'm trying to move everybody away from that. But why do I have 5 copiers? I hope one day I have 0 copiers.
But I mean, that's great to hear. And like you said, all the lawyers I've talked on here are, I would say, not dinosaurs. A lot of them are moving in that direction. That's why I asked that question, because it seems to be a theme and something that people are all embracing nowadays, looking at social media and all that stuff. But my fourth to last question here, Mike, live on the Lawyers in the Making podcast, what are your book recommendations for people? It doesn't have to be about the law, just some of your favorite books, something you give a gift to someone.
I have several books in my office that I give out. One by okay, I'm gonna let you edit this part out, edit my stumbling. I give out the book. Hold on one second. It's Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin is one of my favorite books. Extreme Ownership. Good to Great is a great book on becoming a leader and leading. I am reading 10% Happier right now. That is a great book about meditation that I love. We give out a lot of books called Fireproof that I think most lawyers and legal students will love. I read a lot of self-help books. I read a book recently called Bending Reality by Victoria Song. That was great. And I mean, if I went to my nightstand, there's probably 8 sitting on it that I could rattle for you, but those are just some of them.
No, it's a great list. I'm hearing some new ones as well. I love Extreme Ownership. I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink. I've listened to his podcast before, so it's very lovely. But speaking of podcasts, it's a great segue into the third to last question here. What are the sorts of things that you consume, not food, consume on a daily basis, either that be through social media, so X, Instagram, LinkedIn, Substack, Reddit, YouTube, any podcasts
So
you do?
I'm a new Reddit fan. I like Reddit. I'm new to it, and I really I think people are thoughtful and funny and creative on there. And I think you get some good advice. It's like if I need like real world advice on something, I'm going to Reddit. I'm playing with ChatGPT a lot. Helps me brainstorm some things if I'm looking for a title or ideas or the difference between 2 things. Somebody suggested you need a dietitian or a nutritionist. I didn't know the difference. I asked ChatGPT instead of Google. I think it's more. I like it. I use, of course, I'm on Instagram. Don't love it. I'm newer to playing with LinkedIn, and that's again how you and I met. So that's been nice. Facebook is a little old. I don't do Snap. I have a TikTok channel because my law firm, we do TikToks and they post them, but I am out of the TikTok scrolling phase. I used to do that during COVID. TikTok passed a lot of time for me, I'll be honest with you. But thankfully I'm away from it. I am trying very hard to detox from my phone mindfully. I meditate and I do some other mindfulness things like that take up hopefully more of my time, like reading. Read a couple great fiction books recently. Heaven on Earth Grocery Store was a great book. Fiction and great historical fiction, which I loved. All the Light You Cannot See, historical fiction, loved. Um, um, I just read a couple of fantasy books. I've never read a fantasy book in my life, and I read The Fourth Wing, which is about dragons and cool stuff. Fiction, fantasy, loved it. So I'm trying to be away from my phone and work and read and meditate and be more mindful and be with my friends and kids, and dog. And I like tech, but it's kind of a time suck and a time waste. And I'm trying to limit it.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of the app deleting. I'm literally re-downloading and deleting apps every single day, like 10 times a day. If I feel like I'm on there for like 1 minute too long, I'm like, gotta delete it. Because it gives me that mental block. So when I go to it, I'm like, oh, I don't have it anymore. Oh, I gotta re-download it. I'm like, okay, it's not worth it.
You're right. Good for you, man, because there's so much. If you're not wasting time on Instagram, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be reading, connecting with people, being mindful, taking a nap, taking a walk, exercising. I'm a big exercise guy. Your people can't see, but there's my little gym next to me here.
Oh, that's a dream for me, Mike, I gotta say.
It's a nice gym. So I work out almost every day, and I sauna every day, and um, a lot of mindfulness stuff.
I love the sauna. I've been in the sauna for a lot of years now. Actually, my dad, we're gonna get a sauna in my garage. We're gonna do it. It's gonna be so wonderful. I'm really excited about it because I love sitting in the sauna. It just makes me feel amazing. It's like I can feel the cortisol going away as I'm sitting in there. It's just so wonderful. But second to last question here, Mike, what does an ideal Friday night and Sunday morning look for Mike?
Wow, going deep, Nate. Um, ideal. I would say being with my kids. We cook a lot. We don't go to a lot of restaurants. We're a big game family. We play board games, card games. We like cornhole. Um, I have a little house here on a lake, and we'll go boating on a Friday night and eat outside and make a campfire. And that is an ideal Friday night for me. Sunday morning, I'm not a brunch boozer dude. I like to walk into a farmer's market, get a coffee, read the paper, be with my kids or a friend or friends, and do something active, some kind of exercise, of course, every single day. Um, and if I could be outside, if I could be on a hike in Arizona, I have a house out there in Phoenix, which is a very, very special place to me, which I love going to, and we hike a ton. And so, whatever city or country I'm in, I bring my hiking shoes and I look for something to climb. So, sadly, in Michigan, there's not that. So, I got to find other things to do here. But when I'm anywhere else with any type of elevation, you'll find me up there.
Oh yeah, I've done a couple Arizona hikes in my life, and they're invigorating. They make me feel amazing. I love it. And as I said it before, I'll say it again, Sedona, Arizona, heaven on earth. I need to go back there. It is home to one of the only McDonald's in the country to not have the golden arches. Fun fact, I didn't know that, and I found that out. I was like, that is fascinating
Interesting.
because it can't go too high up in the air. It's too hot. It's crazy. But last question here, Mike. I do this at the end of every single episode, but what are your words of wisdom for the aspiring law students, the current law students, and the legal professionals out there in the world?
Well, I think we covered a lot of that in the book, and I to you know to boil it down to a sentence or two. I think that everybody's looking for happiness, right? Everybody's looking for that, and lots of philosophies on that. But it's I don't use the word passion. Um, I use the word, what I said, my definition of your sweet spot, like whatever you can do to get a job in your sweet spot. And I think as a young lawyer, it's almost impossible. But your drive, your desire should be looking for that intersection between doing work you love to do, maybe you call it passion, do work you're passionate about, work you love to do, and that you're really good at and you're great at, and you want to do it. And if you find that intersection, you're going to be really happy. Money's going to flow. You're going to have time off. You're going to be able to do everything else you want to do and not be married to a job. And it also let me be with my kids. And I never missed a soccer game. I never missed a dance recital. I'm proud about that because my kids are now getting older, and it's the best, because people will say to you, Nate, when you have kids one day, we talked about, they're going to say, can you believe my kid's 22 years old? And when people say that, I have a 24-year-old, I'm like, yeah, I can believe it. I was there every day of her life. It did not go by fast for me. I am not dreading that she's 24. I'm happy she's 24. I remember every day of her life. So if you're present in your practice and you're present with your family and kids, life does not speed by. And I think you can do that. We can all do that in our practices, but just don't run around like a chicken with your head cut off without any plan or purpose or processes or learning how to delegate or having a team. Once you have, if you don't, you're end your career and you're like, what did I do? What did I earn? Where are my kids? But if you slow down, do it right, you're going to have a great career. You're going to have a great family life. You're going to work as long as you want, stop when you want, do what you want. And that's it. That's my advice for you, Nate.
Well, Mike, I couldn't agree more. Anything is possible, folks. You just got to get out there. You just got to start. Don't start tomorrow, start today. Because that's where all the magic happens. You build that momentum. You compound. It's a wonderful thing, Mike. But that's the episode. That's the podcast. So thank you so much for coming on here, spreading your wisdom, spreading your experiences. And for everyone out there listening, thank you for tuning in. Be sure, check us out. LawyersInTheMaking.substack.com. Lawyers in the Making, one word. Substack.com. And I will see you all in the next one.